My name is Swami Manamurti. I'm just going to talk a little bit about Saguna and Nirguna meditation in relation to Kriya Yoga and a couple of other things, duality and non-duality and KHECHARI Mudra, the different forms of KHECHARI Mudra and what I've been told by a few Kriya Yoga masters about it and some of my own personal experiences as well. So in Kriya Yoga, the inner light, when the inner light appears in Kriya Yoga, it's actually a form of Nirguna or formless meditation, not Saguna or with form. So there's different types of meditation. Both different types of meditation are either with form or formless. So the formless being much more abstract rather than a construct of the mind, or maybe visualization or on a form. So the inner light, when it appears in Kriya Yoga, it's actually a form of Nirguna meditation because it leads to the formless absolute. So as everybody knows, God is formless, does not have form. So the absolute is formless, just existence, Satchitananda, existence, knowledge, bliss, formlessness. So with Saguna meditation, it's a lot of people can easily comprehend the concentrating on something. They go into meditation, Dhyana, and deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's a path of more Raja Yoga, really. But it's going from form into the formless. So at the absolute stage, when you connect with the absolute, it's formless. But many people don't really want to go into nothingness. They want to have darshan or seeing their God in front of them. That's why a lot of people take to like a photo or visualization or use of a mandala, a picture of their guru if they have a guru. They use the form, and through the form that can take them deeper into the absolute, which is more of an abstract concept, trying to conceptualize your abstract thoughts or visualization into the absolute. So I know from my own experience with Swami Satchitananda, so even in the dream state, you can get a much deeper experience through the form. Even in the dream state, you can contact or visualize or be with your guru, and that experience can take you into the formless, into the absolute. And I've had that happen to me a number of times over the years with Swami Satchitananda, my guru. So I can, even though you can't speak really about formlessness, you can, after you've been there, you know exactly where you've been because it's out of this world and out of the constructs of the mind, beyond all thought and beyond all mind. So when we're talking about that, we're actually talking about duality and non-duality as well. So when you're visualizing something or concentrating on something, it is duality. But when you actually go into this experience that we're talking about, the formless, Satchitananda, it is a non-dual experience. It's, from what I've been told, actually I've been told a couple of things from Babaji, and you might have seen that through those previous videos that I've posted over the last couple of weeks, channeling messages and so forth. So Babaji's told me a few things about duality and non-duality. So Babaji's told me that in relation to the Kundalini Research Project, which I've been trying to get actualized over the last 10 years or so, or more than 10 years, Babaji told me that the KRP participants, the actual participants of the course or the yoga camp, or you might call it the project, which is a 5-year project. So Babaji told me that the KRP participants that perfect Kriya Yoga will experience the same non-duality state as experienced by Adi Shankaracharya. So everybody's heard of the great world teacher Adi Shankaracharya. So what Babaji is saying here is possible for any participants of this project that perfect their Kriya Yoga, that they will reach the same state of non-duality that Adi Shankaracharya, who was also a disciple of Babaji, reached. So we're talking about Adi Shankaracharya now, the great yogi who needs no introduction, and about non-duality. And also Babaji told me that the final 2 years of the project, the 5-year project, so it's a 5-year study of the 108 participants, or a maximum of 150. 108 would be ideal because it's an auspicious number. So the final 2 years of the KRP project would be totally taught astrally. So obviously through the project over a period of the first 3 years, the participants' frequency will have been raised enough to teach totally astrally. So there'll be high teachings coming in there. So that's a couple of things I wanted to share about, and also this in relation to duality and non-duality. I'll just share something I spoke a few years back with also one of my gurus, John Mumford, Dr. John Mumford, Swami Ananda Kapila Saraswati, about duality and non-duality. I asked him about it, and Swamiji said they have to coexist. They both are real and they both coexist. So you find a lot of philosophers, they're either absolutely duality, or absolute non-duality. So, and there's a lot of bickering between, recognizing the other side, and some understand both sides of it. So yeah, Swamiji said they both have to coexist. So in relation to Kriya, we're talking about the non-duality. We're talking about 0 point energy, you might say, in Sushumna, and 0 point energy and activating that Sushumna. So also what I wanted to talk about tonight is KHECHARI Mudra, a little bit about KHECHARI Mudra, which is used in a lot of the Kriya Yoga techniques. So there's 3 main forms of KHECHARI Mudra, and the first form is through the actual sadhana of Kriya Yoga. So I'll just tell a little story here about my initiation, my first initiation, or it actually wasn't my first initiation into Kriya Yoga. It was my second one, but it was the first initiation in 1993 with Shaibendu Lahiri into the tradition from his great-grandfather, Lahiri Masay, the great Kriya Yogi, and Babaji. So that lineage represents Babaji and Lahiri Masay. So one of the Kriyas that we're taught in the first stage of the initiates are taught, or the Kriya bands are taught, is Talabya Kriya, where you try to lengthen the frenulum underneath the tongue and do some stretching exercise with the tongue without saying too much. And I was shown as a demonstration, there was a Kriya initiate from Canberra who was actually at the initiation, and Shaibendu showed me how he had perfected KHECHARI Mudra after a period of practicing for only 3 months. And I thought, wow, that was fantastic. So he showed me with his mouth open, the tongue was right back and straight up behind the epiglottis. So I took that as a real motivation factor and practiced that for, well, many years, trying to perfect KHECHARI Mudra. And in the end, I gave up because I wasn't successful in doing it that way. And when I met Shaibendu a couple of years later, I went to visit him at his house in Varanasi. He told me the prerequisites of getting the next level of initiation, the higher Kriyas. So there was two methods. One method was the perfection of KHECHARI Mudra, which is the usual stage. If people persevere long enough, and some of them might perfect it that way, they can reach the next level of initiation. So the other way was 2 weeks of pranayama at Shaibendu's house at Satyalok, coming there for a period of 2 weeks, doing 2 hours of pranayama every day under guidance. And by showing that dedication to pranayama, he would allow participants to get into the higher kriyas via that route. So I was actually, after many years, I always put that in my mind, and I practiced those 2 hours of pranayama for many, many years. And the pranayama that's practiced in this lineage is very different than, say, pranayamas that are practiced in Kundalini Yoga, where we work with ratios, and it's very, very different. It's more of an equilibrium. You reach a state of equipoise or equilibrium. So if the inhalation's a certain length of breath, the exhalation is perfectly even, equal. So through that technique of equal inhalation and exhalation, you reach a state of mind which is very tranquil, and if perfected, the breath can stop. So when that occurs, that's Kevala Kumbhak. The Kundalini can awaken, the Sushumna can awaken and take you much deeper. So we're talking about the Kriya Yoga application of the tongue, KHECHARI Mudra, which is used in quite a lot of the Kriya techniques of both the BR School of Yoga tradition of Kriya Yoga and also the lineage of Lahiri Masay and Babaji. So in the tradition of BR School of Yoga and the the KHECHARI Mudra that's used in the Kriyas in that tradition. It's slightly different. They use a Raja Yoga form of KHECHARI Mudra, where the tongue is just inverted and placed against the soft palate, behind the hard palate, into the soft palate. And it's a very effective form of KHECHARI Mudra as well. And it's much more gentle form than persevering with the Kriya Yoga form, which is a lot more difficult. I can vouch for that. So, and with the Raja Yoga form, I found through the Raja Yoga form of KHECHARI, you can contact Sushumna exactly the same way. So if you persevere with your pranayama and your kriya, and you've got that tongue inverted back and up against the soft palate, you'll know when you'll feel your tongue is against that soft palate, and you'll feel that you've contacted the canal centralis, the sushumna, and also you'll feel Muladhara. So when you activate Muladhara, you'll feel Muladhara, and at the same time, as soon as Muladhara gets activated, you've got Agnya going at the same time. So it's utilized in a lot of Kriyas, KHECHARI Mudra. So that's the Raja Yoga form I'm talking about. So, and also we've got the Hatha Yoga form. So the Hatha Yoga form's quite more extreme form of KHECHARI Mudra, where they cut the frenulum underneath the tongue, right? So over a period of a year or two, that is severed, or you might say dissolved, so the tongue can be pulled out longer. So that can easily be folded back and turned upwards to help achieve that breathless state of Kevala Kumbhak. So I should also mention also that breathless state that we're talking about, where Kevala Kumbhak occurs, that can even happen in a japa. And it happened to me in 1986 when my Kundalini awoken for the first time. I was practicing a japa in the same way, a very long, slow breath from Muladhara up to Agnya, or you can take it to Sahasrara, Agnya, and back down with mantra from Muladhara to Agnya and back down. So a nice slow breath, and there's no ratios like in pranayama. So it's just a long, slow inhalation and a long, slow exhalation. So perfect timing is actually very important in Kriya Yoga. So you might say a japa is a preparation for Kriya Yoga. So perfect inhalation with an equal exhalation. So if you're inhaling for 6 or 12 seconds or ohms or more, 24. So I like to do it in increments of 12, 24, 36. So I used to use 24 inhalation, 24 exhalation. So over a period of time, you can build up to the number of rounds. So that's one round, inhalation 24, exhalation 24, or 6, 12, 24, 24. So that's one round. So you can gradually build that up in increments of 12 rounds, 12 breaths, in and out equals one breath. So you can build up in increments of 12 breaths, 24, 108, 144. So if you're doing 2 hours of pranayama like I was, you're doing quite a few rounds. So, and when you're doing that all the time, you learn about all the energies that you can contact via sushumna and around the spinal cord. So there's, without talking too much more about KHECHARI. So KHECHARI Mudra, also it's said in the Tantras and the Tantric text, the Amrit is supposed to flow from Bindu at the back. So at the back of the soft palate where you see children's fontanelle, in a newborn child, they've got the fontanelle. It's the soft part where the skull bones haven't quite joined up yet. So that soft part's a fontanelle. So posterior part of the fontanelle at the back there a little bit, where you see the whirl of the hair. When people with hair, I don't have much hair, but young people, you see them with hair. And where that whirl of the hair is, that's the Bindu area. So from Bindu, with KHECHARI, they apply the tongue lock. So the Bindu is supposed to stimulate the Bindu from. So when you're doing the tongue lock, you got it resting or trying to stimulate the Lalana chakra. Lalana, just in the soft palate, just above it, towards the brain in there. So there's a lot of glands inside our brain that we're not utilizing much, especially this gland, Lalana chakra. So with KHECHARI, we're stimulating Vishuddhi, Lalana, and Bindu. Those three. You might say there's a circuit between the whole three of them. Vishuddhi chakra, Lalana chakra, and Bindu. Bindu is very important. It's not really talked about much in many Kriya Yoga traditions, apart from Swami Satyananda's tradition, taught through the BR School of Yoga, about Bindu chakra. Bindu is very important, especially if you stimulate the nectar or the amrit, ambrosia, amrit, nectar. They say one small drop of the amrit is enough to sustain the body with light, illumination. And you've heard of some of these yogis. I've been reading a bit recently about people that live on the amrit. Some people, well, I've met at least one milk barber in Nepal that didn't eat for 45 years. He lived on amrit alone, and 2 liters of milk a day. So he didn't eat at all. So, and also in autobiography of a yogi, there's a chapter in there about a lady that didn't eat also. So there is these rare occurrences of these people that talk about the amrit and they've renounced food, but they're still living. So there's a lot of miraculous stories. Also, while we're before we continue, I just wanted to say a little bit more about the Hatha Yoga form, where the frenulum is separated. My dear friend who passed away recently, Dr. John Mumford, Swami Ananda Kapila Saraswati, he achieved perfection in KHECHARI Mudra by the Hatha Yoga version. He told me he surgically separated the frenulum, and it helped him with his pranayama or breath suspension, so he could hold his breath for longer and longer. Or it's actually not a forced breath retention. If you study the physiology of I think it's the pons in the brainstem, pons or the medulla oblongata, they're the respiratory centers in the brain, they're the ones that fire the messages to, okay, I'm ready for breathing now. So, obviously everyone knows there's voluntary and involuntary with breathing. So it's when you're running out of breath, the brain sends a message to breathe in, so you'll have enough oxygen. So with pranayama, obviously we take control of that, and we're breathing with ratios and all sorts of things, with especially with Kundalini yoga. There's a lot to do with ratios and breathing. So it has a very profound effect, especially the pranayamas in Kundalini yoga and Laya yoga, which is the yoga of pranayama, the very direct route of Kundalini. Very powerful, and probably all too powerful for many people to even try, unless they're very close with a guru or a teacher who can tell them when to slow down, stop, etc. So John Mumford, he had a story about Khechari that he shared with me. He was a Kriya Yoga master, but his Khechari was perfected via the Hatha Yoga version of Khechari Mudra. Also, another master that I spoke to was Swami Janakananda Saraswati, who's the guru from Sweden that I mentioned in previous videos, who taught me Kriya Yoga when I was there in 2011. So when I was leaving the ashram, Swami Janakananda told me that Swami Satyananda, his guru and also my guru, Swami Satyananda's main focus in Kriya Yoga was the perfection of Khechari Mudra. So that's a bit of a revelation no one's heard before. So Swami Satyananda's total focus, was the perfection of Khechari Mudra. And Swami Janakananda told me his focus was Maha Mudra. So there's the difference there. Maha Mudra, and Swami Satyananda's focus was Khechari Mudra. So they're the main things I wanted to discuss tonight. Just a little bit about Saguna and Nirguna with form and formlessness. So I've got another little story I'll share a bit about Saguna and Nirguna. It was quite amazing, really. A very good friend of mine, I was in India in 2012, and a friend of mine wanted to become, well, one of my colleagues, KRP colleagues, wanted to become one of my students. I didn't have any students. I didn't really want any students. I retired from teaching. So I didn't really want any more students. I just wanted to pursue my own sadhana and be involved with research into some of the phenomena that I'm deeply interested in. So I asked this colleague or friend of mine, okay, you want to be my student? Okay, I'll test you to see if I'd like to spend the time, because you've got to understand that when there's a student or student teacher relationship, there's an investment in time, and obviously it's not really written, but there's an investment in karma as well. So when you take on somebody, there's a karmic relationship that starts. So I thought, okay. And this colleague, friend of mine, she said, "Oh, ask me anything." So I said, okay. So I just thought about what I'd ask. And I said, okay, what's the difference between Saguna and Nirguna meditation? So, well, this would be interesting. I'll see what sort of answer I get. So she got a few pieces of paper and she started writing. And I was really impressed, really amazed. And she wrote 3 whole pages of the difference between Saguna and Nirguna meditation. So this is somebody that's never practiced yoga before. See, some people, well, especially Hindus, they got it in their DNA. Somewhere in their DNA, they've they've they know a lot. It's just beneath the skin, as Swami Satchidananda said once. So, and especially if they've had Kundalini awakening previously, and this person had. So I was very impressed, very, very impressed. And oh, well, there's a lot more I could say about that person, but I won't say any more. But that's all I really wanted to say tonight. Just a little bit about in relation to Kriya Yoga, KHECHARI Mudra, and Saguna and Nirguna. The inner light being very important path of meditation because it leads to formlessness. Although it may appear to have a shape, you might see it as a circular disc, the light, like a tattwa, but it leads to formlessness. You don't, so it's not a mental construct of the mind. It's not abstract, but you're just looking into it. I like to think that if I'm looking into the light, God's looking at me. I'm seeing the light, I'm seeing God through that light. God's seeing me also. I mean, God sees everybody, but especially when you're looking at the light. And when you see the light for the first time, it's a real revelation, and you're really thinking, "Wow, I've really found something here. I'm seeing God for the first time if I'm seeing this light." So that's all I wanted to say tonight. Just something about KHECHARI Mudra and a little bit about Bindu. Vishuddhi, the Vishuddhi throat chakra, Lalana, and Bindu. Those 3 are connected. So if you stimulate one, you're usually not far off stimulating the other. So Bindu is very, very important. So it's utilized a lot in the Kriyas of the Bihar School of Yoga tradition. So that's something you might want to listen to or look into Bihar Yoga tradition. So I might see if I've never tried this function before, but I might see if anyone's got any messages. If not, I'll just tune out until next month. Um, so I'm not sure about all these functions. I'm not real IT savvy. I'd probably better off on a webinar, I think, with people asking questions or sharing together. But we're still recording, and amazingly, it's been going for 34 minutes. I thought it was much less than that. So I just put a little bit of information out there tonight about the inner light, Nirguna, and KHECHARI Mudra. So I might just end this stream tonight and I'll make another broadcast next full moon. Hari Om. Namaste.